What's good, y'all? Today, I'm going to be breaking down how to make placement-ready vocal samples for your loops. The sample we're going to be breaking down today actually got placed on this artist called Lil 50's new album. It got placed on a song called Minivan.
I'm the man. That's what you gotta understand. That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to be breaking down how I did the background vocals on that song, even though I'm a terrible singer, using mostly stock FL Studio plugins. So let's get right into it. Of course, you need something to sing to, so these are the chords and melodies I laid down for the sample. And then you, of course, gotta record your rough vocals. And these are gonna be really rough, so just bear with me. But this is how it sounded pretty much dry. So yeah, as you can hear, I'm a terrible singer. You're probably better than me. So the techniques I'm going to be using definitely do work, even if you really do suck at singing. But basically what I do is I'll take the sample and I'll open it in Newtone. You could do that easily by right-clicking on the sample and then going into Edit in Pitch Corrector. That's going to open Newtone. And what you want to do here, this is pretty much the most important part, especially if you suck at singing. This is how you're going to get your vocals in key. So what you want to do is you want to turn the variation down. You could keep it like a little bit, and you want to turn the center up, and you want to select all the notes using Control A, and then go into this scissor edit drop down here, and then you're going to go to scale, and you're going to select the scale that you're in, and then you're going to click right here, snap to scale, and that's basically going to move all the notes in key. And as you can see, I have the trial version. I've never bought Newtone, but you can just render this out to audio. Once I rendered it to audio, I'm pretty sure I opened it in Edison and I added this blur to it. I think what this does is kind of add like reverse effects. Basically, you just want to choose the amount of blur and the mix. You could preview it and then just click accept, and that's going to add some cool effects to the vocals. This is optional, but in this case, I did do it, and I do think it made the vocals sound a lot better. Now, here's how the vocal sounds now that that's done. So it's already sounding way, way better. I also pitched it up an octave. I do that when I want it to sound more like a female vocal. So I pitched it up an octave, and then I added a bunch of effects to it. You basically want to drown it in effects. So I added a bunch of reverb, delay, EQ, taking out highs and lows. I added a limiter just to control some of the volumes, and this wider plugin to widen it basically and make it sound a bit more stereo, because usually when I record vocals, they're very dry and like somewhat mono. And here's how it sounds with the effects on. So that's much, much better. And that's basically all I really did. And here's how everything sounds together. Couple of things to note. This sounds really good when you're doing vocal runs like this, when you're kind of doing like ad libs and stuff like that. I'm not sure how well this would work if you were to try to do like a vocal hook or something like that. It would probably sound really, really robotic. So that's just something to keep in mind. I mean, it could work. I have yet to try it, but I feel like this is definitely safer. You just record these vocal runs and stuff, and then you can drown it in effects. But once you add all the effects to it and kind of drown it out, you can come up with something that sounds really, really good and even get placed. I was honestly really surprised when this got placed. I was pretty excited. I was like, now I can make really rough, horrible vocal samples and basically mess them up as much as possible until they sound good, and it can actually work and get placed with a big artist. So just some other tips that you could use to make them sound better as well is if you go and you open it in the playlist here and you go to the mode and you put it on Stretch Pro, you can mess with the format or however you say that. And if you move it up, it's going to sound a little bit more female. And if you move it down, it'll sound more pitched down, a little bit more male. So just as an example, I'll move it up 500 and see how it sounds. So it's a slight difference, but it definitely does add to it. I didn't do it in this case, but you can mess around with it. Here's how it would sound if it was lower. Also, here's some tips just to make the vocals sound better as you record them. I try to think about it like a melody. So I try to think about it like I'm doing some sort of lead melody on top. So you kind of want to find the notes in your head that you kind of want to go for and try to hum or ooh or ah or whatever you want to do. Another good tip that you definitely should use is make sure you're in a key that works well with your voice. You could always pitch it later. So it'll be a lot easier to record, especially if you have like a deeper voice. It'll be easier to record in maybe a lower key or something like that. It'll be easier to hit the notes as closely as possible before you process everything. You also might want to play with the pitch of the sample itself. That'll also help blend it in a bit. I didn't do that in this case, but I did pitch the vocal up an octave like I said earlier. Finding the right pitch or key for the vocal is definitely really important. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Another piece of advice is don't overthink as you're recording. It's probably going to sound horrible, especially if you suck at singing like me, but just trust the process, you know, just hum random stuff, close your eyes, act like a singer, you know. You could even record like longer, like 32 bars or whatever. That's what I tend to do. I tend to record for like 16 or 32 bars, and then I'll take my favorite part and cut it up. For example, the original here, as you can see, is 16 bars, but I didn't use the majority of it. I just used parts of it. So that's another piece of advice you definitely want to keep in mind. It also helped give you time to kind of like sort of find the key or match the notes more closely when you give yourself more takes and stuff like that, or a longer take, I should say. Also, if you have a good auto-tune plugin, that might actually be easier than using Newtone. You're just gonna have to dial the settings the way you want. Nowadays, I actually do use auto-tune. I use this M Auto Pitch plugin. I think this is free actually, so feel free to go grab this plugin. In my newer samples, I've been using this, and I usually put the speed at like 80 and I leave the depth at 50. You could even shift the formant or however you pronounce it in the plugin itself with this. It's just a little bit easier and less steps than Newtone, but if you only have stock plugins and you don't want to go out of your way to download this, Newtone works extremely well. Another thing too is, even if you're a bad singer, if you keep making vocal samples like this, you do eventually start to get better. I do think I improved a lot over time. I don't always make vocal samples, but just sitting down and making them every once in a while definitely improved my singing. So that's another cool thing that you can get out of this. But yeah, that's probably where I'm gonna wrap up this video. If you really don't want to sing and you'd rather just cop a kit with lots of vocal phrases in it, you could go check out my Canvas multi-kit. It has a bunch of sounds in it, and it includes a bunch of vocals that are completely original that I recorded myself, just like this one. I actually think this one is in it. It's right here, called Questions, 135 BPM. So definitely check that out if you don't want to make vocals yourself, or if you want a huge multi-kit with lots of sounds in it. It's not just vocals, it has a bunch of stuff, including one-shot kit, perk loops, phrases, textures, an analog lab bank, MIDIs, and more. So the link for that will be in the description. Definitely go check it out. Also be leaving the link to some free R&B loops in the description as well. So definitely tap in with that too. But yeah, just a quick little video explaining how to make these samples. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments, and let me know what you guys want to see next. Make sure you check out my other videos, and definitely subscribe if you want to see more. But I appreciate y'all for watching, and I'm out.